Hello, everybody. You probably recognize me if you watch church on, I need to find my camera. It's right here. You probably recognize, let me try this. Thank you for your flexibility. Today is World Read Aloud Day, and we have an author in our midst here. Well, we have several. I don't want to assign a very specific title to a very specific person because we have many, many writers, poets, authors, songwriters in our midst here at UUCR. And one of those people is Betsy Biesenbach, who wrote this wonderful story. I don't know if the lights might be a little bright for it. Let me get a little closer. There we go. Say My Name, the story of Amanda Jeffers. And it was illustrated by another congregant here at UUCR, Judy Nelson. And she drew these wonderful pictures. I'm going to read an excerpt from it. Now, today is World Read Aloud Day, where we celebrate having the opportunity to read out loud. And we do recognize that this is geared mostly towards speaking and hearing people. But as we celebrate World Read Aloud Day, we could not do it without Betsy's book. So I'm going to read. I thought about which part I wanted to read. The whole thing is just such a gem, such a wealth of information about a young woman who was a slave who lived on the property where the church is now located. And there's so much beautiful writing in this book that it was hard to pick a passage. So I did the default, the read aloud default, and I chose to read the first chapter, which I'm going to read for you now. Chapter 1 is called Mama. The little girl dug her hands into the short, brushy mane of the mule she was riding, nearly falling off as she twisted her body to the side, straining to see around her father who rode behind her. She waved as best she could at the two figures standing in the road. Daddy had borrowed the mule special from Mr. Jacob this Sunday so that after church they could take Mama and Ellen and the new baby from Mr. James's farm, where the three of them lived, up to Mr. Williams' place. They were all going to see her older brother, Washington. He had to drive Mr. William to his church on Sunday morning, so he hadn't been able to join them at their summer meeting place by the creek. But in the end, Mama and Ellen decided to stay behind. The baby was very new and Mama was tired and wanting to rest. And Ellen wouldn't leave Mama's side, not even to go with Daddy. She was afraid of being sold away without a chance to say goodbye to anyone. The little girl herself had been taken from Mama the year before when she was just 4 years old. She'd only gone to Mr. Jacob's farm down the hill where Daddy already lived, but Ellen was 13. Almost big enough to do a woman's work, and she couldn't count on being so lucky. The little girl touched her hair as she lowered her hand and turned around to face the road ahead, as Mama and Ellen faded into the distance. Mama had braided her hair a month ago, but there was no one at Mr. Jacob's place who would bother with it. It had grown out at the roots, and the ends of several tails had started to come undone. Mama had promised to fix it today while they rode up the wagon track, the two of them and Ellen sitting high up on the mule, laughing and talking while Daddy walked beside them. But there was the baby. Mama pulled back the blanket. Mama pulled back the blanket he was wrapped in to show him to her, but the little girl barely looked at him. There had been another baby last year, a boy, just like this one. The overseer, who was in charge of the workers, made Mama leave him alone in her cabin from sunup to sundown while she worked in the fields, just as she was made to do with this one. Ellen told her later that last year's baby had cried all day at first, then less and less, until one day he didn't cry anymore, and he was taken away to the burying ground in the woods. This baby cried the same way the other one had, making soft little mewing sounds. And the little girl was sure he was the reason Mama's face looked so tired and gray. She felt her daddy's chest move again against her back as he took a deep breath and sighed. He usually sang or whistled or told her stories on these trips to keep her mind off the long walk they had to take when he couldn't get the mule. But he didn't seem to be in the mood for any of that today. So she leaned back against him and was quiet too. Now, if that doesn't make you want to read the rest of the book, I don't know what does. we hear about some things in this little passage that aren't so comfortable, are they? But we have to remember that this was Amanda's way of life. And the great thing about this book is we have in the back, we have her history. We have all the research that Betsy did regarding this young woman who lived on the property where our church was built. And it's important now more than ever to remember the lives of people that have come before. Remember how they weren't always easy. And even though it was a way of life, it was not always the appropriate way of life, and it wasn't everything that we could give them. So pick up a copy of this book. There may be other folks from the church going live today reading passages. Some may choose to read the same passage that I did, that default chapter 1, to hook you in. But grab a copy. If you don't have a copy, you don't have access to a copy, it is on Amazon, and there's links everywhere. If I remember, I'll put one in the description box on this video, a link to the book on Amazon. You can also, if you live locally to Roanoke, Virginia, you can drop by the church and pick up a copy. If you want copies for your class, that's something we can certainly get you in touch with Betsy to arrange. It's very important to remember as we do our racial justice work and the work of the church and of Unitarian Universalism, it's important to remember the real stories of real people. So happy World Read Aloud Day, and it's also Black History Month, so it's the perfect time to read this book. And I say to the folks who watch me read as Raggedy Auntie, I tell them to stay happy, stay healthy, and keep reading. I wish that to you. I wish you a wonderful World Read Aloud Day. Take some time to read a book out loud and entertain or educate the folks around you. And if you're lucky, you have a book like this that does both. I guess I can say goodbye as I try and figure out how to end this live. Here's a secret. Jessie isn't always tech savvy. Oh, I found it. Goodbye.